Yedid nefesh av harachaman mishoch avdach el ritzonach yarutz avdach kimo ayal yishtachaveh emul hadarach yerav lo yedidutach minofet suf vechol ta'am yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai lai yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai lai yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai lai yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 lai. Bruchim habayim, welcome to Temple Israel. It's good to have you here this afternoon. You can all keep me company while Cantor Lissick is away this Shabbat. It's great to have you start Shabbat with us. Welcome if you're here in the sanctuary. Welcome to everyone joining us on StreamSpot as well. We begin our service with the lighting of Shabbat candles, and I invite you to please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. May be seated. We turn our Sidor Lev Shalem to page 11 for the beginning of Kabbalat Shabbat. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God as we raise our voices in song. Page 11, Lechuner Anina. Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Ladonai. Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Ladonai. Naria, Letzor Yishenu Nekad Mafanav Betoda. Naria, Letzor Yishenu Mizmirot Naria Lo. Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Ladonai. Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Lechuner Anina, Ladonai. Kem Melachadol, I'll call him here. Arba'im shana kut bedor v'amar am to'e levavhem v'hem lo yadu derachai asher nishpati v'yapi im yevon el menuchati. The heavens shall be glad, and the earth rejoice. The sea and its fullness roar. The meadows and all that grows in them exult. Even the trees of the forest shall sing praise. As Adonai comes, page 14, the middle of the page. Yismechu hashamayim. Yismechu hashamayim. Yismechu hashamayim. Yismechu hashamayim. V'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo yismechu hashamayim yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz. Turn ahead to the bottom of page 20, the final 3 lines at the red arrow for Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu behishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu behishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu behishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu behishtachavu lehar kodsho. So the song and the prayer that we think of most for Kabbalat Shabbat is the song Lecha Dodi, the beautiful song where we talk about welcoming the Shabbat Kala, the Shabbat bride. And it's a mystical song, it's a spiritual song written by Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz, the mystic of Tzfat who lived in the 1500s. And as you can see, it's a longish prayer. It has a refrain and multiple stanzas. And if you look at the first letter of each stanza, they spell out his name, Shlomo Halevi, giving you a hint of who it is. But we often talk about the theme of the Shabbat Kala, the Shabbat bride. How do we personify Shabbat? How do we welcome it in? But there's another theme of Lecha Dodi that we don't often mention as frequently, and we don't see it because we usually don't sing the whole Lecha Dodi here at Temple Israel. But one of it is mourning the destruction of Jerusalem and looking forward to its rebirth, to its restoration. And it's an important theme this time of year on the Jewish calendar because this Sunday marks a period of time called Bein HaMitzarim in Hebrew, between the straits, or in English known as the 3 weeks. And they culminate with the fast day of Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, that mourns the destruction of both temples in Jerusalem and many other tragedies in Jewish history that we believe took place on that same day. And this theme of mourning for Jerusalem and praying for its restoration has been important for Jewish people throughout history, and it continues to be important for Jewish people even today, even as we look at a rebuilt and a restored city of Jerusalem. We continue to pray for peace in Jerusalem and for the rest of Israel, for peace with our neighbors, and for peace among the many people who live in Jerusalem, both Jewish and non-Jewish. And so if you look at Lecha Dodi, if you look at, we're familiar with the first 2 stanzas that we sing every week. We're going to add in the 3rd stanza also this week, same melody, Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, shrine of our sovereign royal city, rise up from destruction and fear no more. End your dwelling in the tear-filled valley, for with God's compassion you will be upraised. It's a beautiful prayer sung specifically about Yerushalayim, about Jerusalem. And traditionally, as I said, we're going to use the same melody, but if you look at the old manuscripts of music, most of the stanzas are written in a major and a joyful melody, but this stanza and one other one are written in a minor, a more mournful sound, because for a long time, Jews, when they thought of Jerusalem, they thought of nothing but the destruction and the rubble of the destroyed city. Now, I think we can sing it joyfully as we've seen the beginning of a rebuilding of Jerusalem. So we turn to Lecha Dodi, page 23. We're going to sing the first 3 stanzas on page 23. And at the end of that, we're going to jump to page 25. And we'll rise and face the door for the final stanza, Bo'i V'Shalom. Page 23, join together, Lecha Dodi. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor bezachor bedibor echad, hishmi'anu מיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו בנלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי מתוך ההפכה, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, לה 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 לה, לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. May be seated. We continue on page 27. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Tov l'Adonai Laki b'bokar kastach, the middle of page 28, the righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. The middle of the page, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach. Page 29. Adonai malach keyud lavesh anozavti konde v'avalti menachos. Eirotecha nemnu meod leveitcha nava kodesh. Eirotecha nemnu meod leveitcha nava kodesh. Adonai leorech yamim. And invite everyone to please rise. And as we do each and every Shabbat, we extend the words of blessing of Berkat Kohanim of the priestly benediction to our children, to our neighbors, to our friends, our congregants, our fellow congregants. Feel free to put your arms around the person next to you. This is not the same melody that Cantor Lissick uses, but hope you will pick it up as well. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha ken yehi ratzon. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka ken yehi ratzon. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom ken yehi ratzon. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. May be seated. I see you swaying. I think you might like it. We now pray on behalf of those who are ill, those in our lives in need of physical and spiritual well-being. And included in our prayers this Shabbat, we think of Rav Yaakov Chai ben Hadassah, Shimon ben Yaakov Mordechai ben Naomi, Devorah bat Sarah, Hershel Yehoshua ben Malka, Perel bat Rezol, Shmuel Yaakov ben Kalia ba'Ari, Devorah Rachel, Malka bat Sarah, Leib Yisrael ben Abraham bat Zipporah, Aliza Meira bat Leah, Tivia bat Chana, Elijah Avila, Yafa Fega bat Ziselbina, Kathy Berlin, Abraham David ben Label, Bonnie Meyerson, Tova bat Rivka, Karen Nina Esther, Adina Miriam, Harry Kinney, Kevin Haffey, Ezer Pesach, Zelda bat Yaakov and Miriam, Ben Sion Chai ben Rachel, Leah Liba bat Doba, Miriam bat Rivka, Allison Kuntz, Jean Cook, Marvin Matthews, Dennis Carroll, Aver Yitzchak, Mordechai Chaim ben Leah, Kim Worrell, Bluma Duba, Malka Sarah bat Ruben Berut, Achazan Arya Shimon ben Chana, Eleanor Goldman, Ann Stanton, Sophie Galinsky, Harvey Stone, Tom Carney, Sarah Ella bat Arya Leib, Daniel ben Yisrael, Maxine Albaum, and Shmuel ben Shimon. I invite you, if you'd like to pray for someone today, and share the name when I come to you. Michael. Betsy. Judy. Bet Kol HaCholim, and all those who are ill, join together in the Mishaberach prayer for healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn in the Siddurim to page 30, and I invite those in mourning or marking a yortzeit to rise and join me in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divera kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lomei maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha brichu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. May be seated. Shabbat shalom. How many of you would think of yourselves as pet people or animal people? Got a few hands there. Okay, some of you, all right, a lot of you are animal people. Okay. Well, I've never particularly been a pet person. We had cats growing up. My kids very much want something furry running around the house, but I've continued to say no. We had a fish once, and when it died, they wanted another one, and I said, no, I'm tired of feeding it. So that's where I'm coming from with this. But I share that this week because our Torah portion that we will chant tomorrow, Parshat Balak, is one of the Torah portions that the rabbis, that Judaism has used to teach about how we relate to animals, to living beings that are not people, who live around us in this world. And the story of Balak is actually mostly about a sorcerer, a wizard named Bilam, who is summoned to curse the Israelites as they're about to cross through the land of Moab. He's summoned to curse them as a way of stopping them, preventing them from crossing through. And Bilam is depicted as a wise person, a wise man. At first, he's not willing to go because God doesn't want him to go. God speaks to him in a dream and tells him, don't go. They are a blessed people. You cannot curse them. But nevertheless, Bilam goes on the road. He saddles his donkey and heads off towards the Israelites. And along the way, God places an angel in front of Bilam's donkey, holding a drawn sword. And only the donkey can see the angel. Bilam can't. And so the donkey tries to go off to the side. And Bilam hits her probably, until she comes back, and she goes to the other side, and Bilam hits her again and keeps beating his donkey. And it's a scene that is somewhat, the whole story is somewhat comedic, but we're supposed to be somewhat shocked by Bilam's cruelty, that he's hitting this animal that is only trying to protect herself. Finally, to turn the story into a complete fairy tale, the donkey opens her mouth and talks to Bilam and says, why are you beating me? I've been your faithful animal for all of these years. Can't you see there's an angel standing in front? And Bilam is silenced. Bilam has nothing to say. Bilam, this man who's supposed to be able to do magic with the words that come out of his mouth, has nothing to say to the lowly animal that has corrected him. Well, this story is one of several stories that relate to animals in the Torah, probably the more famous one being the story of Noah and the ark. But it's one of the stories that the rabbis in the Talmud used to teach a Jewish value called Sa'ar Ba'alei Chaim, which means the pain of living creatures, or the feelings of living creatures. And we're taught about this as something that we are supposed to avoid, that we look around at any living creatures, and we're not supposed to do something that will inflict unnecessary pain on that particular creature. As such, it might be surprising that there are actually halachot, laws written down about how we treat animals, how we relate to animals, such as the idea of not working an ox and a donkey together from the Torah because one is stronger than the other, or some that are written down in rabbinic law, some that might even say that you can violate Shabbat to help an animal that has fallen into a pit. The Torah and the rabbis give a lot of concern to the feelings of animals. And you could say one reason for this is we care about all living beings. They are all God's creatures, ba'alei chayim, all living creatures. But Rambam, Maimonides, the philosopher, also gives another reason why we care about animals. The way that we relate to animals, whether we think of ourselves as animal people, or probably especially if we don't think of ourselves as animal people, is training us for relating to others, to the people around us. Animals have no power when we're with them. We can talk to each other, we can control the animals, and our kindness to them shows something about our character, being kind to an animal that is in some ways lesser than us. And so the rabbis use Tsar Baalei Chaim as a way of teaching about how to develop our characters, because we start by the way we treat animals, and then we learn from them how to interact with other people, how to treat people with kindness as well. And so it goes back and forth. So the story of Bilam is probably one of the more upsetting stories. It's a story of a person behaving in a very ugly way towards an animal. But we've always used it in Jewish tradition to teach us this important value of being kind to all living beings, whether they are on 2 legs or 4 legs or some combination of that. So tomorrow we read the story of Balak and Bilam, one of the more incredible stories in the Torah. Let's turn to page 39, and we rise for the Baruch Hu, the beginning of the evening service. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMivorach. Baruch Adonai HaMivorach Le'olam Va'ed. May be seated. We continue in the middle of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from before the light. Ma'avir yom u'mevi laila, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben laila, Adonai tzebaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, Tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari v'aravim. Turn to page 40. With eternal love, you have loved your people, the house of Israel. We join together, Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, V'shachbeinu v'kumeinu, Nasiach b'chukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'v'mitzvotecha, Le'olam va'ed, Ki hem chayenu v'yorech yameinu v'yorech yameinu, U'ahem negei yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. Yavatecha al taseh mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויהיה שמונה שמונה מצוותיי שני. היום אני משהו מדבר בני ישראל אמרת המזון ציצי. Adonai Elohechem Memet, page 43. Emunah kosovikim aleinu kyunei aleinu zelas. Kalei for Allah means some night. Amavir banav ben Yisrael Yamsuf, Edrod fehem v'etzonehem bitomo tiba, v'ra'u banav kiburato, shibechu v'hodu lishmo, malchuto b'ratzon kibelu aleihem, Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael lecha anu shira, v'simcha rabba v'yameru chulam, mi chamocha bo'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tilot osei fele, malchutecha robanecha, okeyam lifnei Moshe, zeili anu v'yameru Adonai, imloch leolam va'ed, v'ne'emar kifadar na'et Yaakov u'yelo miyad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai kal Yisrael. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Blessed are you who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people Israel, and over Jerusalem, page 45. Ashkiveinu l'shalom amin malchus. Ushemor tzeitenu uvoenu lechaim uleshalom me'ata v'ad olam uferos aleinu sukkah shelomecha baruch ata Adonai haporei sukkat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Page 46, we rise for V'shamru. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם יומיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה. בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו. We spend the next few moments in silent prayer with the words of the Amidah, beginning on page 47. We turn to page 52. At the bottom of the page, we conclude the Amidah, Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Page 54, Kaddish Shalem. Yitkaral v'yitkara Shemei Rabbah, Yalma Dibra Kirute Vamlich Malchute Bechayachon Mechonim Chedecho Beit Yisrael Bagalav Izman Karim Immeru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Olam Meomaya Yitbarach Vishtabach Vidpar Vishamam Vidnaseh Vidadar Vidalev Vidalash Medakudesha Richu Le'elam Mikol Barchata Vishirata Tushbek Rabnechem Ata Tamiran Bialma V'immeru Amen Titkabal Salchon V'atonecho Yisrael Karamavoni Vishmaya V'immeru Amen Yesh Lamar Bamin Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'alko Yisrael V'immeru Amen Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'alko Yisrael V'alko Yoshvei Tevel V'immeru Amen. Page 55, we rise for the Kiddush. Elena, you want to join me up here and give me a hand? We can give what you want to. That's the right parsha for it. Savrim Aranan Rabbanan Rabotai Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Peri Hagafen Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kiddeshanu Mitzvotav V'Ratzavanu B'Shabbat Kodsho B'Yavav Ratzon Inchilanu Zikaron L'Ma'aseh V'Reishit Ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher lisiat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'yahava u'bratzon hinchaltanu Baruch Atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Chaim, cheers. Thank you. Page 56, Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol atekidulah liyotzer breshit shelo asanu ki oyei aratzot velo samanu ki mishpachot ha'adama shelo samcha keinu kahem vegor aleinu kechol ha'onam v'anachnu korim mishtachavim u'modim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Noteh Shamayim V'Yoser Haaretz U'Moshav Yekaro B'Shamayim Imal U'Shchinatu Zo B'Gavei Meromim Eloheinu Ein Od Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato Kakatu B'Torato V'Yadata Yom V'Hashevota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu HaElohim B'Shamayim Imal V'Al Haaretz Mitachat Ein Od Al Kenekav Lechol Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz v'yom mahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. May be seated. We turn to page 58 for the mourner's Kaddish. This week we observe the yort sites of Barry Rich, Bernard Rafkin, Harriet Warshaw, Ray Grosswald, Sidney Tachman, Stuart Franklin Ostrow, Sue Ann Rogel, Abraham Kushner, Abraham Ruff, Annie Rachel Hirsch, Edmund Cinda, Edna Gans, Fred Bruck, Irving Fogelson, Leigh Lochelt Jacobson, Mark Cohen, Annie Goodman, Bella Lewin Jacobs, Helen Gold, Herbert Jacobs, Judy Collar, Julius Strauss, Michael Schmaling, Ralph Smith, David Weiner, Jenny Feingold, Martha Weber, Miriam Schraga, Virginia Cohen, Benjamin Rasnick, Edith Cabot, Esther Frank, Isaac Lepik, Ruth Norman, Sarah Rita Hunger, Arnold Kievelson, Harold Frucht, Herman Brenner, Monroe Katz, Otto Rosenberger, Rudolph Rosenberger, Sadie Maddens, Carla Levick Wilenzik, Freda Kesselman Dans, Harry Besnoy, Meyer Solomon, Samuel Denham, William Abrams, Julius Simmons, Martin Herbstman, Maxine Dorham, Renato Mayojas, Sandy Mendelson, and Shirley Levine. We also extend condolences to families in the midst of Shloshim, the period following the death of a loved one, to Emily Greenberg on the passing of her father, Gerald Sonnenschein, to Judy Kaufman on the passing of her husband, Steve Kaufman, to Zach Gerger on the passing of his father, Gerald Gerger, to the family of Linda Lisak, and to Deborah Binnick on the passing of her mother, Sylvia Kelman. Page 58, Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, V'yalma divera kirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman kariv v'yimru, amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach leolam olameo maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu, Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran b'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru, amen. May be seated. Call on Leon Galinsky for some words of greeting on behalf of the Temple Israel Board of Trustees.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Rabbi Volk and Adam Ward, for a beautiful Kabbalat Shabbat service, and Sean Sievert for live streaming our service. Upcoming events include Shabbat Bachutz, which has been rescheduled for August 19th due to weather concerns next week. Don't miss the fun for all rising kindergartens through second graders. Summertime Fun returns on Tuesday, July 26th. Details and registration is available on Temple Israel's webpage. Marshall, our own class on Jewish life in the South, began this week to rave reviews, from what I hear. You may register online for all 3 remaining classes taking place on Wednesday evenings. Hopefully everyone's received their membership renewals. Please return, if you have not done so, those renewals and other applicable forms as soon as possible to the temple. Please check our website for everything Temple Israel, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you, Leon. Efficient. We're going to conclude tonight with Adon Olam. We turn ahead to page 211. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa b'chefzo kol hazai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam v'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora Adon Olam v'hu haya v'hu hove v'hu yeh b'tifara Adon Olam Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa b'chefzo kol hazai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכביר אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה אדון עולם, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי מיום מקרא אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת ישן ויעיר אדון עולם, ואם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא ירא אדון עולם. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Good job.